So Biagio, I mean, when your name comes up, I mean, it's no secret. It's kind of unavoidable that your grandfather, Muhammad Ali, his name is going to come up in the same sentence. I think you're pretty used to it by now.
100%. Yeah,
It's
definitely.
common, but you know, it seems like you have embraced it. You know, it's something that you're very obviously very proud of the man. But is it kind of difficult to kind
Mhm.
of know that like right now at least you're kind of you're present because of the family, of course, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah, I've embraced it, I can't hide from it anymore because, throughout my childhood growing up, we always kept it a secret. I never walked around telling people, Muhammad Ali's my grandfather. I never did that. Me and my brother didn't do that. So when someone would find out, we were kind of like, at least me, like I was kind of nervous when someone would find out who I was related to because I didn't want to be treated any different because of that, or because I didn't want it to matter or anything. So we kind of kept it a secret growing up. But once I got to like my freshman year in high school when I was playing football, it just, I mean, it just spread out. Max Preps picked it up and everybody started to figure out who I was related to. And since then, the media has been insane. And yeah, I've just embraced it at this point, like you said.
Sure, sure. At what age do you kind of realize like, hey, he's not just grandpa, he's somebody to other people too?
Oh man, it's kind of hard to pick one age because throughout my entire life, that was just my grandfather. And then I remember in third grade, I did a project on him, and nobody in the class knew I was related to him. But we had to do like biographies, on famous people, and I decided to do my grandfather, Poppy. And I learned a lot about him. I knew he was an athlete, a tremendous boxer. I knew that he was pretty famous, but I didn't know, like, when you're that young, you can't really comprehend the kind of impact he really made. So just as I got older, I started to kind of unravel just how much of an impact he really made on the world.
Of course, of course. And obviously your family is famous for boxing. Him, your aunt Layla Ali, of course, and even your brother you mentioned, Nico Ali Walsh. He's unbeaten, 9 pro fights, off
Mhm.
to a great
Yeah.
start. But what brought you to MMA? You went a different direction.
Yeah. Growing up, me and my brother were huge boxing fans. I mean, we always watched fights since we were little kids. My aunt Layla fought, and I remember like as like a little baby, I was ringside at her fight. Yeah, freshman year of high school when I was like 14, that's when I started watching a little bit of the UFC, and John Jones was like as big as he is, and McGregor was up and coming as a featherweight. And I loved the fact that there's more than one martial art that could play a part in a fight. So seeing people kick and knee and do all types of like submissions and stuff, it really intrigued me because that's how I looked at a fight, like an actual fight. Not taking any credit from any other martial arts, but that's just kind of how I looked at it. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm a big fan of the sport. And then I just became a fan. Um, After football, I wanted to kind of just stay in shape, and one of my friends was training at Extreme Couture here in Vegas. And I remember after football, I wanted to stay in shape somehow. So I was thinking I'm an athlete, like I want to do athletic stuff. So why not learn how to fight? So I was just training just to initially stay in shape because I didn't want to get out of shape from not playing football or being forced to uh sport. So yeah, I ended up training, and the more and more I trained, I just started to fall more and more in love with the sport and respect the sport too. Um, yeah, so that MMA, that's pretty much how I got into it.
Sure, sure. And you know, I think I'm sure you know this already, but you know, a lot of people may not realize, a lot of fans of combat sports, that your grandfather was something of a proto MMA pioneer. You know, he had the special rules match with the great pro wrestler Antonio Inoki.
Hmm.
What do you know about kind of your grandfather's attitudes toward the modern version of MMA that kind of rose up the last 20, 30 years?
I'm not so sure, obviously he had Parkinson's disease, and the disease kind of got worse and worse as he got older. And every time throughout my entire childhood, every time we would visit, all we really did was kind of just hang out and watch movies and Western movies. So he didn't really watch fights. A lot of the times he'd be reading a book about himself, of course. But like we would come across a picture like when he fought Joe Frazier or George Foreman, and I would ask him like, "Poppy, you remember Joe Frazier? You remember Smoking Joe?" And he would like smile and nod. And yeah, so he didn't really watch that much of MMA, but I do know for a fact that he would be a huge fan of it. I think he'd be a huge fan of when Conor was doing all his like peak trash talking, like that little era of Conor McGregor was like he would have loved it.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, he obviously he knew his way around a word or two, right? But
100%.
to all of us, of course, Muhammad Ali, he was the greatest. He was a legendary athlete, civil rights champion, world humanitarian. What was he like as your grandfather?
Hmm.
What was the man like just in those moments you described a little bit?
He was just a sweet old man. That's how I remember Poppy. Just laid back, relaxed. I mean, a lot of it had to do with the Parkinson's, but he was still very aware, and he loved us so much, and we spent so much time with him. Um, me and Nico, we loved to get reactions out of him. So in order, like, he loved magic. He was a big fan of magic. So Nico had this like Chris Angel Mind Freak kit, and he would do magic, like we would do magic tricks for him to get reactions. He'd be like, "Whoa!" Like he'd say, "Man, man, man." So yeah, we used to just do that stuff to get reactions out of him and just spend quality time. He loved to color and draw. Some of his favorite things were like he would draw a ring, and he would draw like two stick figures in the ring, and then uh do a bunch of dots outside of the ring to represent like the audience of the fight. So he would do stuff like that. He'd draw mountains with like a lighthouse at the top, and yeah, me and Nico would do the same thing, and that was Poppy. That's what I remember. We would go out to eat sometimes, and um, we'd go to the movies. We're big movie fans, so that was how we spent time with him.
That's really fantastic. That's super cool. And
Yeah.
you've alluded to this, your football background that kind of brought you, staying in athletics and that kind of thing. Now that you're in fighting, now you've been training and all that, what kind of skills, you were a running back, right? You were a running back.
Yes.
Yeah. What sort of skills that kind of transferred over from football to fighting now that you're training in that?
I think as a running back, you have to have peripheral vision and you got to see openings. I think that kind of transitions a lot to MMA, um, in its respective aspect. The foot where you got to have footwork when you're fighting. It's very important. You have to use your peripheral vision. You got to be able to see openings. I think these are things that kind of transition pretty well into the new sport. Um, Another thing too is football is a big team sport, and the team that I played for in high school was super. We were really good, but we were also very um, disciplined as well. I think that's why we were so successful. But I don't show up late to practice. I don't show up late to meetings. Nothing like that. And I think a lot of that has to do with football. It kind of instilled into my brain that it's unprofessional to be late or something. So I think that those few things very well.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense, of course. And what we've seen of you, in the cage in PFL, is a young fighter who knows how to use his hands, finish fights quickly, and all that. Other than your hands, what would you say, kind of the most important attribute to you as a fighter? Kicks, gas tank. What do you got?
Um, I have really explosive takedowns. Nobody hasn't seen that yet. So as my career goes, you'll be able to see. It's going to be inevitable. I'm fighting in the sport, but I have really explosive takedowns. Um, I have good head kicks, good low kicks. Um, and my overall grappling has just gotten so much better than say my second fight. Um, yeah, and I'm still an amateur. I'm still a baby. 10 years down the road, I'm still going to be learning about the sport. I think that that's what's so beautiful about martial arts is it's always evolving. There's certain things that people have never seen before happen. You know, when Joaquin Buckley threw that kick, that famous kick, and like spun out of it and knocked the dude out, there's fighters that have been in the game for a long time that hasn't even seen anything like that. So um, the sport's evolving, and as my career goes, I just look to improve as a fighter.
Sure, of course. And
Mhm.
are there fighters that you look to, whether it's either at the gym or at Extreme Couture or just guys you like to watch that, maybe you watch their game and I'm like, gosh, I really want to incorporate parts of that into my game.
Yes,
What do you watch? Who do you see?
100%. First off, like we're in an era now where we have YouTube, you know. Back then you had to put in like uh cassette tapes and stuff to be able to watch film on other fighters. Today we have YouTube. So we can go on YouTube right now and watch fighters that we look up to and even watch breakdown analysis videos of it. So that kind of goes right back to the sport evolving is now you have an outlet to where you could sit down and literally study this stuff. But I have a bunch of fighters that I watch. I watched a lot of Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, Jose Aldo, my buddy and teammate Maz Burnell. I watch him. Clay Collard, he's also in the PFL. Like all these guys, like they have a certain style about them, and they have tricks and tips that I always watch and I try to pick up on because they do it so well. And obviously, I'm not gonna be able to fully replicate these great fighters, but you can, like you said, you can. It's kind of like art. You could take certain techniques and implement it into your own. That's why it's a martial art. It's literally like art. Like if a painter is uh looks at Van Gogh, he could take certain things that Van Gogh did and make his own. So yeah, it's the beauty of the sport, and those are some of the fighters that I watch film, and I'm like, dang, like these guys are just really good.
Right on, right on. And your fight coming up here now, it's against Ed Davis, another amateur fight. He's 2-1 in AMI. I know,
Mhm.
at this level, there's less focus on the opponent, at least in training, and it's more on individual growth. But what do you know about Davis as a fighter?
I know he likes to stand up a lot. Um, I know he's a southpaw. I think he trains out of Maine, I think. But I actually just watched his recent interview. I really respect the guy a lot because he's the only guy that I have faced so far in my career where he hasn't said anything negative about me or my grandfather. He hasn't, and I get that all the time from a bunch of people online. I get it from a lot of people, just negative things. But like, it's not like my grandfather is not stepping in the cage with me, fighting for me. Like he wasn't stepping on the field and scoring touchdowns for me. Like I was doing it myself. So my whole career, I'm gonna be fighting for credit. But he's the only guy, Ed, that didn't say anything negative, and I really respect that about him. Um, but other than that, that's all I really know about him. Southpaw, more of a striker, has power. Um, yeah, talented dude.
It's kind of a weird stage though, because you're still in this AMI period where you are having these guys who you're going against that there's not a whole lot of film. You're not really preparing more for that guy, like I was saying, and it's kind of a weird thing. But is there kind of like the itch now to like, man, I kind of want to leave AMI behind. I want to turn pro, or is there a roadmap in place? What do you have going on?
I wouldn't say there's an itch yet. I think that itch will come as soon as my coach is like, "How do you feel about turning pro?" Then I'll be like, "Ooh, okay." Then I'll probably get the itch. But uh, yeah, right now I'm just trying to get as much experience as I can. I'm super fortunate with the situation that I have right now. Being an amateur, being able to fight on a card like this, on the stage like this, on ESPN, like I know I got the opportunity because of my name, but now, I want to show that I'm not just the name. I have an athletic skill, I have explosiveness, I have speed, I have fight IQ, and I can fight. So throughout my amateur and even pro career, I'm going to be just living up to that, showing that I'm not just a name. I'm an athlete. I'm a fighter. I'm explosive. I got speed, power, endurance, IQ. You know, it, I know I'm an amateur, but even when I turn pro, I'm going to still have that problem of it's not even much of a problem, but I'm gonna still just have to live up to that, you know?